Okay, I want to start by giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakah, Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, starting with the 144,000, consisting of the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in the land of North, Central, and South America, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. Okay, back today again on the topic of prophecy, and we're now into 2024, the hopeful year of Jacob's trouble, and the true men of the Lord have warned you, have given you the message of the Most High, that 2024, the Most High is going to turn up the heat. Now, we've seen evidence of that, and one thing you have to remember, last week leading up to the 1st of January, for example, the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st of December, there were certain prophets out here that were warning you that 2024, the Most High is going to turn up the heat. There were some so-called Hebrew Israelite prophets out there who play the role of prophets, who try to read the scriptures and break them down to you, albeit they do it incorrectly. And these particular men were also not warning you of 2024. So just before 2024 began, the last few days, there was a clear distinction between two sets of Hebrew Israelite prophets. One group that did warn you that 2024, the Most High is going to turn up the heat, and another particular group, what we refer to as false prophets, they did not warn you of 2024. And so Sunday night at midnight, according to the heathen, according to these people out here, these other nations, they celebrate their New Year's Day at midnight. They change the clock during the middle of the night. It gets to the middle of the night, and all of a sudden they reset the clock. They start the day again, and they set the date, and they change the date. So according to these heathens, last Sunday at midnight, it became the next day. It became 2024. And yet according to the scriptures, according to Genesis, we know that the day begins when the sun goes down. There was darkness, and then the light came. The light stayed for a bit. That was the sunrise, and the sun was present. And then eventually the light disappeared. And when the light went down, the sun went down, that was the end of the first day. So the next day now begins in the dark when the sun goes down, and you have a period of dark, and then you have a period of light, just like the scriptures, Genesis, the book of Genesis explains to you. So those in the know, those working off the secrets of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, we understand the day begins when the sun goes down. So when it came to midnight on Sunday, all these heathens celebrated the first day of 2024. The true prophets had just warned you that the 2024, the Most High is going to bring judgment, going to turn up the heat. And at midnight, when these heathens were celebrating their New Year's Eve, no judgment took place. Now don't forget, when you look at the planet, the clock doesn't change, the sun doesn't rise or go down at the same point around the whole planet at once, around everywhere on the planet at once. It happens in gradualism over the course of the day. So the people in the East, for example, Japan, China, which is known as the land of the rising sun, these people would celebrate their New Year's Day first before the people of the UK, before the people of LA, for example. They celebrate their, the sun comes up or the clock changes, it becomes midnight in Japan, and they celebrate New Year's Day. Eventually it becomes midnight in the UK, they celebrate New Year's Day, and then so on and so forth. New York, LA, the Caribbean, South America. So as the day, the sun rises gradually over the earth, or the clock changes gradually over the earth, the time, because we have different time zones, people eventually, one by one across the planet, end up celebrating the first day of the year. But we know, according to the secrets of Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, they're doing it at the wrong time. Because technically it's not a new day in the middle of the darkness. You have to wait till the beginning of the darkness for it to be the next day. So we warned you that Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai is going to turn up the heat in 2024. The heathens, it got to midnight on Sunday, and the heathens started to celebrate New Year's Day. But it wasn't a new day. The darkness period had to finish, because they were in a darkness period, and then the sun had to come, and then the sun had to go down. And when the sun went down, that was the end of the last day of 2023. So 2024 began when the darkness came. And when you consider, obviously throughout the year we have different sunset times, according to whether it's winter and summer. And at the minute, being January, the sun is setting in Japan at around 4:30. Now don't forget, obviously this 4:30, you can see on the screen here the sunset time in Tokyo, Japan. It's 5th of January, so this is the same week. The sunset time is 4:41, roughly 4:30 in the evening. Now this is debatable. You could say as well it's 10 minutes earlier or 10 minutes later. And the issue is, obviously, it depends at which point you start. They're obviously measuring the sunset in Tokyo, but there is land or waters more east of Japan. So technically, you could argue, and it plus people say, oh, well, the sun's going down, at 4:41. That's pretty precise. Is that at the point at which the sun fully disappears, but you can still see light from around the horizon, or is that the time at which it actually fully becomes dark? Either way, it doesn't really matter. The point is that the sun is going down at the minute, this time of year in Japan, at around 4:30 in the afternoon. So that signifies the beginning of a new day, whichever day it is, according to the Most High, according to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. The new day, according to the Most High, does not start at midnight. So when these heathens are celebrating New Year's Day at midnight, the Most High is looking at them. He's going, well, the day hasn't changed. Why are you now celebrating a new year, a new day, 2024? The 2024 won't come until the sun goes down. And so the next time the sun went down was technically, what these heathens call Monday, the 1st of January, 1641. According to these heathens, that's when the sun went down, and that's when it became 2024. So now you consider, well, what time did Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai bring the earthquakes to Japan that we just witnessed? We told you the Most High is going to turn up the heat in 2024. It got to midnight. These heathens started to celebrate 2024. But the Most High is looking at them, and he's going, it's not 2024 yet. It's 2024 when the sun goes down and a new day begins. So looking here, this is usgs.gov. It says New Year's Day, 7.5, magnitude 7.5, earthquake shakes Japan, west coast. This is at 4:10 p.m. local time on January the 1st. So what did I just say? The heathens started to celebrate New Year's Day at midnight. They're going, oh, it's 2024. The prophets had just warned you that 2024, the Most High is going to turn up the heat. It came to midnight. These heathens were celebrating. And where's the judgment? Can't see it. But the Most High is looking at it, and he's going, well, the day hasn't changed yet. It's not 2024 yet. It will be 2024 in Japan at around 4:30 in the evening. So at the same time, what did the Most High do? He waited till what? At 4:10 p.m. local time on Monday, on January the 1st, when 2024 really began. Says the U.S. Geological Survey's National Earthquake Information Center detected a magnitude 7.5 earthquake at a relatively shallow depth of 6 miles or 10 kilometers near the northern coast of the Noto Peninsula on the west coast of Honshu, Japan. So here it is. The prophets have warned you that 2024, the Most High is going to turn up the heat. It got to midnight on Sunday, December the 31st, and the heathen started celebrating a new day, a new year, 2024. We couldn't see any judgment. The Most High is going, no. 2024, the day starts when the sun goes down. So on the Monday, as you can see here, at around that same time, the Most High brought the judgment. So, the prophets are speaking and the Most High is making something happen. Now, when you consider that Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, was not waiting around, he was very keen to exercise what we warned you of. We warned you that 2024, the Most High is going to turn it up. And according to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, when the sun went down and it's a new day, now he's bringing judgment. And he brought it on Monday, he brought it on Tuesday, he's been bringing it all week in all various forms to all different people for many reasons. Now you may say, this is 4:10 p.m. But yet the sun didn't go down till 4:41 in Japan. Now this is all debatable, all these timings. And if you want to say that the Most High was early, well, that's what someone would do if they were keen. For example, at the minute where I work, we've got a new person. And so what happens, I finish my shift at 8 o'clock in the morning and people come in to take over. Now, the people that have been there a long time and they're quite relaxed, they turn up at 5 to 8 and they take over from my position so I can leave at 8 o'clock. They give me that 5-minute window so I can leave. And at the minute we have a new person. And one thing that the new person is, compared to everybody else, is the new person is keen to get the job done, keen to prove the point that they can do the job, they can get it done, and they're capable. And so what does that new person do? She keeps arriving half an hour early. So that one particular person will arrive at 7:30 to let me go. I don't finish till 8 o'clock, and all the people that have been working there for a long time, they're all relaxed. They don't turn up till 5 to 8. But the one that's keen is the one that's coming early. And you can, according to these times here, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai was half an hour early, and he brought it at 4:10 p.m. local time. Yet the sun didn't go down till 4:41. You could debate this. You could go slightly further east. If you go more east of Japan, you have a little bit of water, so on and so forth, then surely, that sunset time would go down, would go closer to 4:10 p.m. So, technically, there's half an hour of sunset. You could go east of Japan and find a sunset which is half an hour earlier, which is when the true, according to the Most High, according to the planet, we have over there in the east, they call it the land of the rising sun. So the day's sunshine will come there first before it comes to the rest of the world. And that happens every day in a gradual process. And there's nothing you can do to change it. And that's when the day began. And that's when 2024 began. And Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai brought judgment at that exact point. He was very keen to bring that message and show you who the true prophets of Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai are. So with that in mind, we jump over to 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 21. This is Apostle Paul speaking to the Corinthians. So I'm going to start at actually verse 20. It says, "Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Hath not the Most High made foolish the wisdom of this world?" And that's what you're about to find out. All this technology, all this wisdom, the way that they try to manipulate things and control things. This is all foolishness. For after that, in the wisdom of the Most High, the world by which wisdom knew not the Most High, it pleased the Most High by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. So the prophets are out here and they're preaching to you that Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai is about to bring this destruction. You can clearly see, we warned you 2024, the Most High is going to turn up the heat. And you can clearly see 2024, the Most High is turning up the heat. The Most High, Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, doesn't really need us to do this. He's so powerful. Yahweh, the Most High, is so powerful. He can make all this happen without the prophets. He can just come along, make all this happen, send Yahweh Shai back. Yahweh Shai can subdue everyone with that spiritual power. And that would be that. This could be all a done deal. But, the Most High likes the fact that he sends these prophets, and these, you look at the world, they have their own particular wisdom, and the prophets come with a completely different wisdom. That is the wisdom of the Holy Spirit, Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai. So it says here, it pleased Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. So the fact that we're out here and we're like underdogs. We come out here and we're giving you this version of events, according to history, according to the future. You've got all these other religions, philosophies, all these people. Everyone's got an opinion. Every single person, even a person who doesn't read books and doesn't have any educational understanding, someone who's not even into religion, and they're still trying to give you their opinion, their philosophy. When you go you look online, everybody's trying to have a say. 8 billion people. And none of it falls into line with what the prophets, Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, are telling you. We come along, we tell you of microchips and UFOs according to the scriptures, and people think we're crazy. They look at it and we look foolish. You've got the men out in America, Babylon the Great, that all on the corners, all on the streets, and preaching this word in Babylon the Great, and ultimately they look foolish to the rest of the world. They're on YouTube, they're on video, they go across the world, people see it. There are other, obviously, various camps all around the world, but the main focus is on America. And so you look over there, you look on the YouTube, you see these men on the streets, and they're preaching this word, and you think, well, what are they actually going to achieve? Is anybody really listening? A lot of them are in these big cities where they, these high, tall buildings, people flying by in these cars. Who's really listening to these men? And it seems foolish, but it says here, it pleased Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. And so the prophets that are, trying to, help, propel the word to save them that believe, it's all part of the Most High's program. And it pleases Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai when the prophets say the right thing. So when we warn you, in December the 31st, 2023, we warn you the Most High is going to turn up the heat in 2024. The first place to hit 2024 was Japan. And, roughly 4:30 in the evening, as soon as it came, Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai was keen to bring the judgment that we spoke of. And that's a clear indication that Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai is pleased with the foolishness of, what seems to be the foolishness of these prophets warning you. So if you were out there warning the world or whoever that would listen, that 2024, if you were out there that Most High is going to turn it up in 2024, Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai clearly showed you. As soon as it hit 2024 on this planet, he started to bring it. The land of the rising sun. The day starts there. The first part of the world to recognize 2024 has to be over there in the land of the rising sun, the Far East, Japan, China, so on and so forth. So, as soon as it got to 2024 on this planet, the Most High brought judgment, and that shows you, that the Most High's keen to bring the judgment. He's also pleased with the prophets. So if you were speaking that word, you can know that Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai is pleased, because you did it right on cue. You spoke of it and he brought it just like that within 2 days, click of a finger. So that's the Most High's pleased with it. He said, "Yep, right on cue." It's like you're about to smash the ball out of the park. So you need someone to set it up perfectly for you. And the prophets set it up perfectly. We're given the Spirit. We're told what to say. We speak it at the right times. Bang, Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai smashes the ball out of the park. And that's kind of what you saw here. And this is only going to get worse for you heathens and you other nations as 2024 develops, and you 2/3 Israelites. And that's why we tell you, part of the reason 2024 Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai is going to turn up the heat. So from that alone, that's a secret. There you go. There's a secret from Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai about how the way he's thinking and about how he's dealing with this judgment. But yet, it's going to take a lot more for these people to really wake up. And that's why we call 2024 the hopeful year of Jacob's trouble. So going into the same particular topic, what are we to expect in 2024? There's very many things that we've told you. And it's all based around the Third World War or the introduction of the digitized monetary system spoken of in Revelation 13, the MOTB. Now, there's an article here that goes along with that. This is the Telegraph, and this was published on the 31st of December 2023 on Sunday at 7 a.m. And it says here, beginning of the end for the EU as we know it after surge in hard right support. It says here the Euro 2024 elections seen as a battle to end Brussels' overreach in national sovereignty. So, this, we've spoken many times, you living under the beast system, the revised Roman Empire, and that consists of the EU and NATO, who have a geopolitical, monetary, political system, which is ultimately operated by the governments, which are secretly controlled by the banking elites. And so at the top of the pile, in this kingdom that we live in at the minute, we have these banking elites. And they're bringing about, this change when it comes to the MOTB. Their empire is going to be brought down in the Third World War. And remember, their empire is consisting of the EU and NATO, broken it down many times. And it says here, the beginning of the end for the EU as we know it, after a surge in hard right support. So carrying on with this particular article here, it says Geert Wilders, Marie Le Pen, Giorgi Meloni and Viktor Orban will lead their hard right parties to victories in next year's European Parliament elections. Polls have predicted. So their parties are expected to be the largest in Netherlands, France, Italy and Hungary after the EU-wide vote in June, which is seen as a battle to end Brussels' overreach into national sovereignty. And so, you have this beast system, EU and the NATO. And EU, pretty much control the people of Europe that are within that beast system, that are living under it. And so, like I said, the directive pretty much comes from the banking elites, and the people living under that Euro system, they're living under the control of the people in Brussels. And because obviously that's where the message from the banking elites reaches the EU, which is part of the beast. It reaches down to Brussels, and then the message from Brussels, Brussels is pretty much where the EU meet up and have their elections and have their, they set their laws and so on and so forth. So what happens, around Europe, you have various different countries and nations. They have their governments, they have politicians, and they send their politicians to Brussels to, make these votes, so on and so forth. And that's how laws, agendas get set. And people live under that, which is known as the EU. That is part of the beast system. So up until now, there's always been certain agendas and certain things that have gone forth from that. And that is the beast system reaching out. Spoken of, in Revelation chapter 13. The beast with two horns that spake as a lamb. The two horns as a lamb, that spake as a dragon. And this is all describing that political system which you're living under that control, especially if you're in the EU. And so they, up until now, like I say, they've had to, they've managed to set agendas, so on and so forth, by infiltrating politicians' minds. And these politicians then, they meet up in Brussels, they have their conferences, they have their votes, and then they go back to their various nations, and they set forth these changes in their own nations. And we had an example previously. We have the thing called Brexit. So the British government were part of the EU. So if you were living in the UK, you were living under the British government, who were part of the EU. So ultimately, you're controlled by the laws of the EU, which is again going all the way back to the banking elites. In 2015, the British people were given a vote to take part in, and the question was, do you want us to leave the EU, or do you want the UK to stay in the EU? And basically, cut a long story short, the population of Great Britain decided to leave the EU. And so then, a few years later, I think it took it up until 2019, or I think 2019, that process then had to take place, and the British politicians had to go to Brussels, where the so-called EU meet up and set their agendas, and these British politicians had to say, look, our people of our nation do not want to be part of the EU. We took a vote, and we're going to have to leave. And so since then, there's been a lot of uproar. The EU have looked at the UK as backstabbers. You've pretty much stabbed us in the back. You've set forth a precedent for people to want to leave the EU. And then, within the UK, you have people arguing and debating. Some say it's a good thing. The UK will be better off for leaving. And some people would say it's a bad thing. We'll lose out financially. The people that are complaining about being in the EU, in the UK, which is where I live, the main topic of conversation was about immigration. When you're part of the EU, any say illegal immigrants that find their way into the EU, you'd have to be responsible for. Each nation in the EU has to take on a certain amount of refugees, shall we say, into their country by being a part of the EU, and that directly determines how much income support, economic support you receive from the EU. So, for example, in the UK, they set the figure at a high number to receive more money from the EU, and people were sick of that process. They thought, well, we're just letting in all these refugees, and they're pretty much taking our jobs. Also, when you join the EU, the strictness across the borders gets relaxed, because you're now technically part of the same nation, so you're able to cross borders quite easily. And so when the UK were part of the EU, let's just say, for example, there was a point at which Poland joined the EU. Now, before that point, there weren't many Polish people living in England. As soon as Poland joined the EU, their borders were relaxed. Polish people were allowed to then travel more freely and easily around Europe to work. And all of a sudden, you found a lot of Polish people in the UK, especially in the building trade, in the construction trade. And then you had British, English construction workers complaining that, you've got these foreigners coming in and taking their jobs. So being part of the EU was a big problem to the general public of Great Britain, because a lot of them saw it as, we're letting in too many refugees, and, too many people coming over here to take our jobs from other nations. We don't want to be part of this. We don't want the laws to be given to us from the EU, from Brussels. So they decided to leave, and that's the thing called Brexit. And now that you see that sentiment, that vibe, that vibration is going around Europe, and ultimately what it's doing, it's making Europe look weak. There are, within certain nations around Europe, as it mentioned here, Netherlands, France, Italy and Hungary, there are becoming more and more politicians that want to follow the steps of the UK, and there's talk of them wanting to leave the EU, and what that's doing is ultimately it's destroying the EU within. It says the nationalist parties from Poland, Sweden, Austria, Belgium, Estonia, Slovakia and Cyprus are all expected to return the most or equal most MEPs to Brussels and Strasbourg. It says more than a third of all MEPs are predicted to be at the very least critical of the EU in a European Parliament that has long been dominated by pro-EU groups, up from around 25% a decade ago, excluding the UK. Within that group, hard right parties firmly opposed to Brussels and often anti-immigration are predicted to compose of up to 25% of MEPs compared to 11% a decade ago. Nigel Farage led UKIP and a Brexit party to victories in European Parliament elections in 2014, a breakthrough year for Eurosceptic parties in 2019. And I'm not going to go into it really, all the details, but when you, in this particular article, you get the idea. But there is this one here. So when you look at this image here, you can see the growing EU skeptic opinion. And you look at the little chart here, and this is talking about predicted proportion of Eurosceptic MEPs by country after June 2024 EU elections. So what this is showing you is the percentage of politicians in the EU that are actually against the EU. And you're looking on the left hand side, for example, when it's dark red, 50% or more of the politicians in that particular nation are against the EU and what it stands for. And you look here, there's some major countries. You've got France and Italy. I believe France have ICBMs. In fact, many obviously European nations do. And when you go up the scale, you've got 40 to 50%, slightly lighter pink. So in these other nations, almost half of the politicians are against the idea of the euro. Obviously, you can see England, UK has been greyed out there because they decided to leave the EU already. And this is all spoken of in prophecy. And ultimately, this is going to lead us towards World War III, because in World War III, these European nations, as much as they are allies with the EU at the minute, which is ultimately the beast system, which is ultimately controlled by America, the whore, according to scriptures. So, these nations are working with America up until now, but the tide is starting to turn, and the politicians, the opinions of people on the street, in the parliaments are starting to change, and they want to go against it. So this ultimately is the breaking up of that beast system on the Euro side of it, the EU part of it. And that's what you can see here by the map. Now, like I said, this is all according to prophecy. Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7. And when you read through these particular chapters, just to got an image here, you read through Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and there are two particular things described. You've got the statue described in Daniel chapter 2, and in Daniel 7 you've got 4 beasts, different types of animals, if you like, that are described. And both of these chapters pretty much represent the same thing. They're going into these different kingdoms, the Babylonian, the Medo-Persian, the Grecian and the Rome. And don't forget, Rome comes in 2 parts. So when you're looking down at this statue on the left hand side described in Daniel 2, there are 2 legs to this particular part, which represents Rome, the ancient Roman Empire and the revised Roman Empire. Just to have a look quickly, you got Daniel chapter 2. Pretty much you've got let me just get his name at the top. So the king's forgotten dream, this is what it's described as. This is in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, dreamed dreams wherein his spirit was troubled and his sleep did break from him. And pretty much what happened, he had this dream and he saw this particular statue and he didn't really understand what it meant, and he called all the sorcerers and all the people that are, the priests and whatever people that were around him at the time to describe, to help them break down what he saw in this dream, and none of them could. And so eventually he had to call upon Daniel, a prophet of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. And he went on to break down what the dream meant. This particular statue, what I just showed you in that image, he went on to break it down and show what it actually meant. So it says here, this is Daniel chapter 2 and 31. It says, "Thou, O king, sawest, and behold a great image." This is Daniel speaking. "This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of gold, and his breast arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them into pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken into pieces, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, and no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth." And so, this is pretty much what the king dreamt, what he saw, what I just showed you, that image. He saw this particular statue, and then at the end of it, he's describing a stone which pretty much comes in at the feet of this statue, destroys it, and obviously with that the statue then falls and breaks into pieces. Now this stone represents Yahweh Shai, and when it says this stone turns into a great mountain, that ultimately is the government of the kingdom of heaven. You see, that statue that the king saw was pretty much a representation of those 4 empires to come before the return of Yahweh Shai. And so that rock represents Yahweh Shai returning, destroying the statue at its feet. And that statue, as it says, carried away in the wind like chaff, no more to be seen. And then that stone became a great mountain. The kingdom of heaven is established, and a righteous government is installed across the earth, according to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. And so, it goes on, like I say, the interpretation, Daniel goes on to interpret this particular empire, these particular, like it says here, look, it shows you Medo, Persia and Greece, Rome, and this is what these, obviously you've got these 4 different empires. That's what it represents. Now when we go to Daniel 2 verse 40, don't forget Rome is represented by the legs and by the iron, and because obviously iron is the first time, the Roman armies used iron quite a lot in their weaponry. And when you look today in this revised Roman Empire, it's pretty much the same thing. Iron is used quite heavily. And what also shows that it's the Roman Empire is the fact that it comes in 2 parts. Ancient Roman Empire and the revised Roman Empire. 2 different legs. And we're in that second leg now. So how do we know we're at the bottom part of that? The very end, right at the feet. We're reading on here about Rome. Daniel chapter 2 and 40 says, "And the 4th kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as so much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise." That represents the ancient Roman Empire, and this revised Roman Empire says, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of iron, for so much as thou sawest the iron mixed with murray clay." Now this represents the EU, the political system. You have, you're seeing the fact that we're at the end of this empire, these 2 legs of this Roman Empire. We're now at the feet, we're now at the bottom, we're at the part where we're about to see this stone, Yahweh Shai, come and smote this statue and break it into pieces. And the fact that we're living in these times now, we have this political system, people are allowed their opinions, it creates a lot of divide. And that's why, this statue, which had legs of iron, ultimately had feet made of iron mixed with clay. And iron does not mix with clay. They have trouble sticking together, so there's always going to be a problem. And now we're in the time where we're getting towards World War III. We know, according to prophecy, according to scriptures, that the EU will shoot ICBMs upon America in World War III. So there has to be a divide. The people of, the politicians of Europe, the ones that are clay have to not mix with the ones that are of iron. And then they will ultimately fall out. They will fall out with the beast system. They'll fall out with the whore. The problem is really with the whore. These nations like the system. They like the beast system. They like to have it and use it to control people. But what they're pretty much sick of is the whore using and abusing it. So Revelation 17 and 16 says, the 10 horns, which represents the EU, which thou sawest upon the beast. So I explained before that the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, the 10 horns represents the EU. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So that's describing to you, the end result of this fallout, between the EU and the beast system. And for the EU to fall out with the beast system, there has to be division within it. That is described here by the iron mixed with clay. It says, for so much as thou sawest the iron mixed with murky clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Says here, and when thou sawest iron mixed with murky clay, they shall mingle themselves together with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. You can't mix iron with clay. You take a piece of iron and you take a piece of clay, and how do you join them together? You can't bolt them together. You can't screw them together. You can't weld them together. You can't glue them together. You can't. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to get. You can press it up against it, and it may stay there for a little while, but eventually, when the clay dries out, it's going to fall away from the iron. So iron doesn't mix with clay, and that's what's you're seeing. That's what's described here in Daniel chapter 2, and you're seeing the evidence of that. This is iron not mixing with clay. This map you're seeing here. So, and eventually this divide, there's a breakup. These elections come in the middle of 2024 in June, the hopeful year of Jacob's trouble. And going back to this article, what does it say at the top? It says, beginning of the end for EU as we know it after surge in hard right support. So, the EU is falling apart, and ultimately, according to Revelation chapter 17 and 16, the EU will shoot its ICBMs at America. And they will be fed up of America controlling the beast system. And so at some point you're going to see them disgruntled, the EU going to be disgruntled with part of the system to which they belong. And that's the division you're seeing. And you're, like I say, that's described in Daniel chapter 2. And when you go to Daniel chapter 7, it says vision of 4 beasts. And Daniel 7 and 1 says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told some of the matters. And it says here, Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. And he goes on to describe these. It says that the first was like iron. It says the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. This represents the Babylon Empire. Like I say, I'm not going to go deep into it for the sake of time. But when you look at this image here in Daniel 7, now you can see these different types of beasts that are described, and for various reasons, They lead us to believe that these are these particular empires. In the middle, same thing as described in Daniel chapter 2, and eventually, the Babylonian Empire has fallen, the Medo-Persian Empire has fallen, the Grecian Empire has fallen. Rome came in the ancient part, Rome part 1, Rome 1, and now we're living in Rome 2, part 2, the second leg, the revised Roman Empire. We're now at the bottom of this statue. We're now at the part where the iron is now mixed with clay, doesn't stick together, there's no stability. And that is clearly shown in the way that the EU is actually falling apart right before your eyes. And that's how we know we're close. We're close to the point at which the stone, Yahushai, comes in to smote this particular statue. So, prophecy is moving quickly, is moving fast. 2024 looks like a huge year for judgment. We've warned you of it. And, it's only a few days old, and Yahushai is not messing around. We've seen by, what he did in Japan. Yahushai got to work half an hour early. He's keen to bring the judgment. So, destruction is soon coming to this empire. Now, I hope that's edifying. I'm going to leave it right there. And until next time, I'm going to say all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rokah, Kwadash. And until next time, Shalom.